Data breach is definitely a very important aspect for any government. I think I would safely say that in the past, when you had stacks of paper and nothing was digitized, it's a bit hard to have a massive data breach. But I think now we have seen that over the years, governments have embarked on the e-government strategy. So e-government, you could say that it's also informatizing and digitizing a lot of their assets and the documents and the information. So encouraging companies, enterprises to sort of go onto the e-bandwagon. When you have that kind of digitization taking place, then naturally what really is important is you're going to have lots of information that is going to be stored. No, it's not just in government servers or government databases, but here we are talking about confidential information of citizens in government databases, but also information that companies hold. Data breach is a natural consequence of that evolution from a very paper-based towards a digital-based kind of economy. And having the citizens becoming more used to e-services. 10 years ago, we would not have heard of anyone, not many people filing taxes online. But now if you go to many countries, Malaysia, Singapore, and even some of the more developing countries, you would gradually see that people are doing a lot of their services online. And what does that mean? That really means that people are giving a lot of their information to not just companies, but to governments as well. When you have that kind of information, any data breach is going to be quite catastrophic. Now, we have seen many examples. For example, in UK, the HMRC records, millions of records being lost. And sometimes it's easy to lose a record, because now what you do is you take a little thumb drive and you can just download the entire database, and it's not very hard. And what people do sometimes is because of bad practices, people do not secure their computers, or people just email out to their own email accounts. People just download things on the CD-ROMs and leave it at home or at a coffee shop or at some places. And here you have an entire database of millions of people in one little media that you can lose. So I think all these trends make it such that data breaches are very catastrophic. And then the next question is, how do governments respond to that? So it's not just protecting government networks from data breaches, but also ensuring that you have a good governance model for the entire nation. A lot of countries have already embarked on this strategy of protecting confidential data through legislation and regulation. So here we are talking about many tools. For example, data protection acts that are generic in nature. For example, in EU, you have the directives 95/46, subsequently the 2002/58. So all these directives that sort of protect the information. And then you have also other countries have adopted different methods, more sectoral based. For example, US, you have different legislative pieces or regulations that deal with specific sectors. For example, healthcare, child protection, financial services. That is a different approach. In Australia, you have developments in Data Protection Act where you used to have one set of privacy principles for the public sector and one set of privacy principles for the private sector. And now the review is ongoing to unify these privacy principles, which I would say makes a lot of sense, because in days and age now, your data is not going to be kept in your server and database alone. It's going to be transferred, it's going to be shared for many services, and for good reasons as well, because in that way you could have more innovative services that you can be delivered to the public. But that also means that when you have data that crosses jurisdictions, crosses different sectors, and you do not have a set of principles that sort of protect them in an equal way, then you're going to have problems, because so do I apply this principle or that principle? In the region as well, you have different countries who are contemplating such Data Protection Act. A number of them, I would say, have like industry codes of practice, to deal with such things. But the question is, how long can that last, and what kind of protection can that afford? So if I say that in 5 to 10 years' time, data protection regulations are going to be sort of becoming more and more in the picture, I do not think that it's just the government agencies that should prepare themselves, but in fact, if you are going to enact a federal law or a generic law, then I think all companies would have to prepare themselves. I think one of the really important things to recognize about protecting personal information is that it's not just about technology, about processes, about writing a policy paper, but it's really about everything. Meaning you have to say, okay, this is the policies. Okay, what do we want to protect? How do we conform with the law? And at the same time, what are the processes we need to put down in order to help people comply with these regulations. Then, of course, the very important thing is technologies. I think technologies have matured to such an extent that there are many ways to prevent actually a lot of this information from being leaked out. I think one of the key approaches is, of course, people have talked about encryption, but encryption is not the only thing, because it can be de-encrypted, and at the same time, people can still be emailing out personal information through the internet, or taking up thumb drive, or just copying down and downloading in a kind of media like CD-ROMs. I think there are technologies that help companies have enforced these policies, detect what are the kind of personal information that you want to prevent being leaked out, and then have these technologies that alert you whenever people are trying to take out confidential information, be it through emails, through IMs, through USB sticks. And I think that is really one important principle in the data protection framework, which is what we call data security. How do you go about securing the data? And that is very important.